So now to my artist talk. So I'd like you guys to just to just listen for a sec. And what is it that you hear in here? So this is a choir, obviously. And you know, if you think about what is a choir is a group of people that come together. It's a group of individuals that come together with a common interest or common goal to achieve, like, for lack of a better word, harmony, even though sometimes they're not singing in harmony. But there's multiple ways that you use that word. But from my own experience, I grew up in a very musical household, and my mom was my middle school and high school choral teacher, and so music and art have always been equally important and influential to me. And so music is frequently a lens through which I filter most everything through. And so when I think of community functioning at its best, I think about singing in a choir, because there's a lot of, each individual is responsible for being fully present, engaging all of their senses, and everyone has to hold up their end to do justice to the piece that they're working on. If someone sings too loud or off pitch, or anticipates the end of a word before everyone else, like, the audience notices. And it makes an impression on the overall ensemble. And singers in a choir, if you've ever sung in a piece where there's not explicit points where you can breathe, you have to start figuring out how to stagger breathe. And so in doing that, you have to be able to listen to the people around you and figure out, when can I sneak out a breath and not make it so that this entire section of this note is going to be missing because everyone decided to breathe at that same time. So you're literally coordinating and breathing with everyone else that's there. And so I really think that is like the really amazing thing about a choir. But more specifically, for this choir that you're hearing, it's a high school choir. It's an unauditioned high school choir, which means you have all sorts of levels of interest and knowledge and skill and ability, and you also, they're learning the piece. They're not performance ready. It's not from a performance. It's from a rehearsal, and that's very atypical to how most of the time you experience choral singing. Usually, you have a choir physically in front of you. Someone in the audience has a connection to one of the people that's singing. People come to see you sing, which is really weird, because usually you're supposed to be hearing what's being sung, but usually people care more about looking at the person that they know that is singing. So I'm really interested in various ways of highlighting or bringing attention to these things that go unseen. And so, likewise, the drawings that are in the first half of this gallery are in-process drawings from the composition process. They are not artified objects. They are drawings that were made in the process of me trying to figure out a system for composition. They're made on popular paper with non-archival ink, and they have points where the letter names that I wrote down on them run into other letter names. And if you look closely, you can even see where the paper pools based on where my hand was resting and where the oils in my hands affected the paper. Those are typically things that you wouldn't see framed in a gallery. But there's something that's beautiful about that imperfection. And the music boxes that are in here, most people, if you have an experience with music boxes, they're either within a jewelry box or they're within like an actual knick-knack, like sculptural thing. And so the actual physical thing that makes the music is not seen. But here, not only is that which plays the music visible, but if you look close enough, you can actually see how it functions and how it works. And you can actually see the music on the paper if you can read the music box word. The music box scroll. There's a staff on there, as well as a grid that shows where all of the notes are. And so what keeps coming back is this idea of like these things that are vulnerable, these things that we know are there, but they're rarely seen. And so likewise, also these weavings back here are actually created on piano dead bodies that I acquired from an arts nonprofit in St. Louis. And these parts from the piano, you have the two on the back walls that are like the thing that's underneath the keys in the piano. And you also have these pieces here that are the piano actions, which basically hold the piano hammers that strike the strings in order for it to make sound. And so you're seeing these things that are integral to the design and function of the piano, but we rarely, if ever, see. And so, and then additionally, they are also being used in a way that they are not meant to be used for. So I'm really interested in kind of like the points where these things kind of move beyond my own control. There, you can see the flaws in the structure of the woven thread on these four weavings specifically. There's these nice little like pinhole lights here. I actually never anticipated that those were going to be there. But that's become one of my favorite things in here. But that's only through, like, it's basically like highlighting to all you guys that I'm not perfect at making unified woven structure, but it's also like the thing which is most interesting and beautiful to me. So I'm really interested in like the spiritual and metaphorical strength that is in these things that are imperfect and vulnerable, and also the points where like the work kind of goes beyond my own planning and my own control, and just kind of transforms into this other thing. But even beyond all of that, and with all of the obsessive planning and work and all of the actual art objects that are in this space, it's turned out that the work, like the actual artwork of this work, is only realized when the people are here, when the viewer becomes a participant, and through playing the music boxes in context and in coordination with each other, that is when the actual work happens. So I would like you all to now spread across the room and find a music box. And usually in music, there's a conductor. And so on the count of four, everyone will start playing the music boxes. And I invite you to either play them as slowly or as quickly as you want to. You can play them broken. You can only play, like, you could just play 2 notes and then be done. Like, however you interpret interacting with these. But like there are endless variable resulting compositions that come out of this performance. So on the count of 4, you guys can start to play the music boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. guess decide when to stop. If someone wants to keep playing for another hour, so, that's the end of my formal presentation, and I will now open it up to specific questions or general comments of your responses to the work.
Why the piano out of all instruments? I mean, I'm not questioning this stuff. They're beautiful, and it reminds me of so many things that they're just beautiful, the light and shadow play. But just you from your heart, why the piano? What does that mean to you? How does that connect with universal?
So I guess my experience, I grew up taking piano lessons for 12 or 14 years, and typically that tends to be the first instrument that if someone is taking music lessons from, that's kind of the basis for it. Even in learning how to read music for choral music, generally the staff is set by what's played on the piano. Also part of it is just that when you're watching TV shows where a piano falls on someone and it breaks, that really angers me. I feel bad physically that they ruined a good piano. So then, the fact that I learned that there was this nonprofit that was doing this great thing of acquiring all these pianos that people were looking to get rid of from their homes, and had an application process where people could have them brought into their group homes or their nursing homes or whatever to make their lives have something a little bit joyful or something for therapy. But then I also learned that the ones that they can't really feasibly repair then end up going to the landfill. And so that bothered me because there's a lot of material and there's a lot of artistry in these objects. And so it's very important that, because I would not have deconstructed perfectly good pianos, but knowing that they may have wound up in the landfill just really bothered me, because a piano that's out of tune is still a piano and it still technically can be played. But that's kind of, and also my experience in learning beginning weaving on the floor loom was very reminiscent to my experience of learning how to play the piano, because the benches are somewhat similar in height and uncomfortableness, and I just the scale of the floor loom versus the scale of the piano, and the relationship between your body and the instrument. It was just all really reminding me of that, and so that was just kind of a way for me to kind of bring it full circle.
Thank you.
Do you feel like these pieces are meant to be always as a whole, or if they could give the same impactfulness as standing alone?
I don't know. I feel there's so much veiled in my work that in a way I've had a hard time writing about the works individually, because I do feel there's something gained by experiencing them all in context with each other. But having said that, I also had several of the weighted work weavings in my apartment while I was finishing them, and I got really attached to the visual of having them in my apartment. So but I do think it's a little harder to get to the overall meaning of them when they are separated. But definitely the music boxes I see the music boxes and the weavings or the drawings as diptychs. So those have to be together, because that's the actual performance of that piece. But yeah, it's hard thinking about in this world of if you were going to sell these, what would happen to that. But that's a good question.
Perfect part for the silence.
I know.
Soundtrack or composition?
Yes, so this drawing that's on this first wall over here, was the blueprints, if you will, for the choral piece that's playing overhead. The original intent was that all 8 of these drawings were going to end up in a choral piece. And through the many layers of translation, I learned that like the music box strip that's on the long wall at the front, that was kind of an archive, and like I took an audio of that, sent the audio to my collaborator so that he could like get the MIDI, which is musical instrument digital interface. So it's basically this like way of digitizing the sound input onto like this keyboard graph. But so that was basically so that he could keep the rhythm that's in the drawings accurate. But in doing that, the music box strip was like 6 minutes long, but then the actual like lengthening it out so that it could actually be able to be sung by the human voice, then turned the 8 drawings into like a 770 some measure piece that would have been an hour and 40 minutes long. And since I was working with people that were volunteers and it's also an experimental score, we realized that probably for this show we should just leave it to the first system of circles.
Great. Very neat.
Well,